Now the tripod unit that we use is a Manfrotto 190 unit. It is a commercial grade, high-end professional type of tripod. In all likelihood, much stronger a unit than what you would buy for just for a domestic use. Mounted to the top of it is a pivoting pistol grip ball and socket type of adjustment for mounting the camera. Now you can see to operate the pistol grip, when it's released, it snugs up the ball and socket, and when you depress it, it rotates much easier to align to whatever directionality or angle that you want the camera to sit at. Now on the top portion of the pistol grip, it has a plate as a receiver for the foot that's mounted on the bottom of the camera. The legs themselves, for our purposes, we want to ensure that they're fully extended. There is no lock per se, but you want to make sure that you pull them out so that they are fully extended as far as they can go. The camera tripod does have some adaptable features, which maybe we can just talk about before we set it on the ground. First off, it has these adjustment legs here that can be, if you pull this down, slightly push the leg in, which will release it, because when it's fully extended, you won't be able to push that button down. Move the leg in slightly, then you can pull that button down, and now you can change the angle or adjust the angle of the leg should you be in confined areas where maybe you don't have sufficient floor space to have all three legs expanded. So it can be used for that. It can be even used at a full angle, and again, it just gives you more accessibility or angle of view without the obstruction of the multiple legs potentially getting in the way. Now the tripod itself, obviously it has three legs. On two of the legs it has rubber mounts or rubber grips that are on there, and those are designed for left and right hand facing backwards. So you should have the a single leg pointing out directly in front in line with the lens of the camera, and the back two legs with the rubber grips are the ones for where your hands should be. So in this position here, now I think maybe we should just talk about the height adjustment on this too. So there is a height adjustment. If you loosen this knob here, it will allow you to expand or extend the center shaft to give you additional height. Likewise, it has a button that's mounted on the underside of the center shaft, a little red button. If you push that button in and push the arm completely up the center shaft, it now gives you the adaptability of swinging that shaft onto a horizontal plane, and you can adjust the angle again if you're photographing something downward as opposed to an outward view. So I'll swing this around so you can see the button there that's on the underside. So when it's extended up, this red collar will come up with it, and the red collar has a cutout, so the arm can only articulate in a downward motion in that one directionality. So again, when you're ready to reposition it back to its normal position, fully extend it out on the collar, and then push the red button, which will allow you to raise it back up again. Now the collar itself has a notch or a tip that will line up with the notch that's on the base. And make sure that those are in alignment, which will allow it to rest back down, and the shaft can be reinserted like that. So again, up like this, push the button in to give you full extension. The collar will come up. In the directionality of the cutout on the collar, you can swing it down, and then to stabilize it, just bring the shaft back in a little bit, and that gives you your full motion. You can, again, use that knob on the side to tighten it down to limit its circular motion or restrain it, and then you can adjust the camera accordingly. We'll do a little demonstration momentarily when we get the camera mounted on the ground. Again, so I just push the button to fully extend it up. Make sure that the tit and the cutout are aligned. Push it down, and then return it to its resting. Okay, so now we're going to look at the actual grip mount for the camera. I will tilt this way here so that you can see more of what we're looking at here. So this tab, this locking mechanism is actually, should be, when it's in the unlock position, it should be pointing towards the back of the camera. So I'm going to the back of the tripod. So again, with the mounts properly set up so that the rubber grips are facing towards you, you can squeeze the grip and adjust the angle. So I'm going to just show you how this works here. So you can see that there is a little brass plate that is here, a little brass pin. When the camera is, the camera mounting bracket is pressed onto that, it will release, push in that brass pin, which releases the lock mechanism. And as you can see, it swings over to the lock position. Now, in order to unlock it, you just swing that back over, the pin will pop back out and it goes back into a lock position. So again, when the mounting bracket depresses that, it releases the mechanism and puts it into the lock. Now, on the back side, you can see that there is a little brass pin with a little rubber handle that's on there, and that is a secondary lock position. So once the lock is engaged, you can swing that over until it clicks, and that is like a secondary lock. To release that, you have to kind of pull it down and then swing it back over to the open position. So now we'll just actually mount the camera. So I'll put the camera back into the position here that it should be sitting. So with the legs in the proper positioning and with the pistol grip mounted the way it should be with the locking mechanism to the rear, the pistol grip handle should be located on the extending out on the right side. So with the mounting bracket that we put on the camera, and we've talked about the directionality of the lens, we're going to mount the camera. You can see that there is a bit of a flare or a flange that goes on the front of that. And so I'm going to tilt this forward. I don't recommend you doing this. You should be doing it with the camera in an upright position, or with the pad in an upright position. But if you put this extension, this flange, in first at the leading edge, and then push it down to release it. So I don't know whether you can see that. Maybe I'll just turn this around the other way again so we can see it. I'll try to do this backwards here. So release the camera here. So the flange goes towards the front first, set it at the front first, and then push the back portion of the mounting bracket so that it comes in contact with the brass pin and pushes that down, which releases the locking mechanism and secures the camera. The secondary lock, if you're going to use that, swing that over and it clicks into that position as a double lock. And again, to release it, pull that down, swing it back to the left, and then you can release the mount. Okay? Always when you're doing this, hold on to the grip or the tripod and just give the camera a little bit of a tug to make sure that it is properly engaged, the lock, and that it's seated properly. Now, just to kind of review what we were looking at before with the adjustment of the extension of the center shaft, I'm just going to demonstrate now that the camera is mounted how that would actually work. So, as we said before, when the camera is in the proper position mounted on the tripod, you want to have, because it tends to be weighted towards the front, you want to have the single arm, single leg extended out to stabilize the camera, so pointed in the same direction as the lens towards the front. I'll just demonstrate this one more time as far as releasing the shaft to demonstrate how that would apply for taking photographs. So again, now you can take photographs this way here and have your angle of view pointed downwards depending on what it is that you're photographing, documents or whatever might be of evidentiary value on the counter surface. So once that's done, again, you have to be careful because it's very unstable in this position. That's why, generally speaking, you want to have the camera, especially when the arm is extended, because it's very tipsy, like this here, very easy to go over. But by having the leg pointed in alignment with the camera, it gives it much more stability. So I'm just going to return this back now to its normal position. And lastly, actually before we continue on, we just want to make sure that there is an adjustment on this bracket here that you will not be able to adjust. But if you're finding that even with the turn knob tightened down to control the swivel, if you're finding that the camera can still swivel on this base easily, then let us know it's an adjustment that we have to look at. It's not something that you've done wrong or that you can correct yourself. Just let us know and we will adjust the tension springs on those. So the last thing I just want to discuss before you can start on your practical is the height adjustment on the actual tripod. So these locking mechanisms here will allow the extension, so you just release those locks and you can adjust the height accordingly. Now, just to facilitate this, I'm just going to take the camera off here so risk any potential for damage. And obviously you can just let gravity do the work for you to extend it, and then just put those locks in position when they've reached the extent that you want. You have the two sets of locks for each section of the leg. There is a level that's on the top here, that's a little bubble level that will give you an idea when they are fully extended or when the tripod is level. But honestly, the easiest way to adjust this, I'll just put this back into a lock position here to demonstrate what I'm going to talk about. If you're on the ground or doing this on the floor as opposed to on a counter and you want to extend these fully, just unlock them and let gravity do it. They'll fully extend. They will all come full extent. And then just secure them. And it will automatically be level when it's expanded because of the full extent of each of the legs. So to close it, you can just do the very reverse. Just contract all three legs, invert it. And then just make sure that you re-engage the locks when it is closed. And there you go.